Thompson. I'm owner, financial advisor, and president of Peerless Wealth, a registered investment advisory here in Columbus, Ohio. So it's the middle of winter right now. It's mid-January 2023. So I thought I would do this month's video on just kind of a wrap up on how the major investment categories did in 2022 last year, and my thoughts about 2023. And kind of like the weather in Ohio in January, 2022 was not a fun year. It was very gray and kind of miserable. There weren't a lot of places to make money. And a lot of times people ask me, and it's usually just a conversation starter because they kind of know what I do, and they say, Eric, what do you think about the market? And I always have to pause and say, well, what market? What are we talking about? Are we talking about the bond market, the equity market, stock market, commodity market, God forbid the crypto market? You know, there's a real estate market. There's a lot of different markets out there. But generally the one that they're referring to is the equity or the stock market. And but certain markets can behave differently depending on the environment. But pretty much every one of those markets that I just mentioned were down last year. And so I'm going to put up a table of kind of the major asset classes that are out there and how they did last year, 2022. So what we can see there on the top left is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And by the way, I'm going to kind of divide this into two parts. This is kind of the short term, how we did last year, and then I'm going to go into a little bit more long term and what I think about the future. So the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 10%. Those are the top 30 companies in the United States. So those are the big blue chip dividend paying companies, Microsoft, Merck, Procter & Gamble, those types of names. If we owned the top 30, and they show that index a lot on TV, it's probably the most widely followed, $100,000 would have ended the year about $90,000. And we have a lot of our clients in those type of investments, the large dividend paying names. The S&P 500 is a similar index, although it includes a little bit more in the tech world, and that was down more because of that, 20%. Bonds. Now, most people know that bonds are more conservative than stocks. In fact, they rarely lose. Last year was an exception. In fact, I can't remember a time in my career where we had a year where bonds dropped 10% in value. I don't think I've ever seen them go down more than 5%. They're usually the ballast of somebody's portfolio. But based on what interest rates did, they went up super quick. That causes existing bonds to temporarily be devalued because new bonds can be bought at higher rates. So that was even down. Small caps, real estate investment trusts were even down a little bit more. So even for clients that were diversified, you know, you average those numbers and it's maybe a down 15% type of year, depending on exactly how you mix those up. That's a disappointment, but it's not devastation. We can come back from that. We've seen many years like this. And in almost every case, the next year, the numbers turn around. What I also wanted to show you is not disappointment, but downright devastation if you got aggressive and bought into some of the hype on some of these investments that I've counseled people against over the last couple years. And I just mentioned a few of them here. Tesla stock, which I warned about, companies like that, was down 51%. Amazon stock, down 51%. Bitcoin, down 67% this past year. And then some of these names that people caught on to, Coinbase, GameStop, AMC, down 70%, in some cases more. Something called special purpose acquisition companies, or SPACs, down an average of 91%. So those areas I've never got invested in, I've counseled people against. Those are things that you just can't come back from, and it's not fun for me to see, but those are the aggressive speculators of the market. In fact, I'll mention Bitcoin because I did a video back in May of 2021, and I'm actually going to insert the clip from that and kind of my warning to investors back then. However, there's a lot of hype around it right now, and there's a lot of sort of herd mentality, and that makes me a little bit nervous. It's very difficult to value something like Bitcoin. It doesn't have earnings, it doesn't have a dividend, it doesn't have revenue. So it's very difficult to know what it's worth. Now it's obviously back to 50,000, so it's been a great investment. Just tread lightly. This would be, part of the speculative part of your portfolio. And interestingly, after I did that, when I did that clip, Bitcoin was at 50,000. Now it's at 17,000. But shortly after I did that clip, it continued to rally, and it went to, I think, something close to 70,000 before it proceeded to crash down. So sometimes craziness can go a long time in both directions, on the way up and the way down. And as an advisor, I always try to be that voice of reason to keep people from, buying things they shouldn't when they want to get rich quick. And then also from maybe selling high quality investments after a mildly disappointing year, which we're kind of in right now. So that's kind of the 2022 wrap up. We're still dealing with an inflation problem. The Federal Reserve is increasing rates to control inflation. It's starting to work. We've seen some of the inflation numbers start to come down a little bit. So hopefully we're on a better path here for 2023. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and go back to the original question. Eric, what do you think about the market? Well, now I'm going to give a little bit more long-term answer. And I'm going to relate it to me personally, sort of going through life, because these are key moments in my life. And I'm going to start with 1997. The Dow Jones was 7,000 back then. Why 97? That happened to be when I graduated from college, Miami University. 1998, the Dow was 9,000. That's the year I started as a financial advisor with a company called Edward Jones. 1999, the Dow was 10,000. Why is that year important? I got married to my favorite person, Stephanie, lovely wife of 23 years and counting. I'm going to jump to 2006. Maybe nothing important happened in my life between 99 and 2006. But anyway, 2006, the Dow was 12,000. I actually switched firms. I went to Wells Fargo that year. That was kind of a milestone in my life. Now I'm going to jump to 2009, and that was a crazy year from two perspectives. One, we had the financial crisis where a bunch of banks failed, huge market correction. We also had our first son, who's 13 now, Sawyer. So that was what happened in 2009. 2012, got back up to 13,000. That year is important because we bought some land to eventually build our dream house. 2015, the Dow was 17,000. That was the year our second son, Beckett, was born. 2019, I started my own firm, Peerless Wealth. The Dow was at 26,000. And by the way, personally, I was an investor through all this, and I still have a lot of clients that were through all this. 2020, it went back down to 19,000. That was during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we're at about 33,000. So that's 25 years. When I say long-term investing, that's definitely long-term investing. The Dow went from 7,000 to 33,000. That's a 477% increase. And I'm not counting dividends. That's just the raw market average, which never include dividends. So it's always going to understate your returns. If I don't include dividends, it's a 6.5% average annual return. If I include dividends, it's closer to 9% a year, which is about the number that I use when I project out people's accounts for the long term. So again, when I ask what do they think about the market, it's treated me real well over that time, but it hasn't been a smooth, even ride. During that 25-year period of time, we've had wars. We had something called Y2K that everybody thought the computers were going to go berserk. We had bank failures, we had bailouts, we had a housing crash, multiple recessions, other pandemics, including COVID, government shutdowns, Democrat leaders, Republican leaders, you name it, we've had it. We still grew the money, but it takes a long time. And there are periods of time in there, in some cases years, where it didn't go up. And so you got to have that long-term time horizon. If you own quality, it's always rebounded. If you own junk, you shouldn't have owned it to begin with. I can't help you there. And I'm going to end with kind of a golf analogy. It's probably my favorite sport to play. I don't play as much as I used to. There have been 10 PGA Tour players who made a triple bogey or worse in their opening round and still went on to win the tournament. And I'll give an example of that. It was actually Rory McIlroy, tough name to say, in the 2016 Deutsche Bank Championship. He bogeyed the second hole of the tournament and was facing a 14-footer for triple bogey on the next hole. He made it, then went on to be bogey-free. He started the last round 6 rounds back and wound up beating Paul Casey by 2 to win the championship. So you want to measure your results over the whole course of the round. We'll call it 18 holes. There's going to be a bogey in there, maybe a double bogey. It's the end of the round that matters. And that's what long-term investing is all about. So I'm going to end it there. Again, thank you for tuning in, and I hope this was teachable for you all. We'll see you next time.